けど久しぶりにバイブス上げてこう嬉しそうできるスイカ
How's it going, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Castaway Anime Podcast. I'm Neon Manta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And today, we're up all night till the sun, we're up all night to get some, we're up all night for good fun, we're up all night to get unlucky with the ending of Undead Unluck, episodes 17 through 24. And as always, if you enjoy the podcast and want to hear more of our objectively correct takes, registered trademark, then be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode of Castaway Anime. Crunchy, how we feeling?
Great intro, rhyming, just spitting straight bars.
Yes, thank you, Daft Punk.
Well, you know what? I just want to quickly regale y'all with the story of how the weather kept getting in the way of this podcast. We had our own wave of unluck hitting us as we tried to record this, and so it got delayed for a very long time. But we're finally here, so some luck came onto our side. And we're back.
In fitting with the theme of the show, God himself has been keeping us from recording by plaguing Central Florida with storms.
Look, all I'm saying is God has a sense of humor. And yeah, I mean, Illinois has also had, it's literally cloudy outside and probably about to rain.
Hasn't a tornado?
A tornado near me? No.
Okay,
but
because I thought it was over in your area.
There have been tornadoes. I mean, yeah, there have been tornadoes, like, in other places around Tornado Alley. Although, to be fair, I think we're on, like, the fringe of it, so we don't get the brunt of the storms. But we have been getting a lot of rain, and actually, yesterday, while I was... Okay, so I have this habit of, like, writing under... This is unrelated to Undead Unluck, but it's related to the weather. I was under a bridge and then got trapped, like, in a storm, like, under this bridge outside, and, like, we were supposed to record. We were supposed to record that day, and I thought I'd be stranded there because I didn't want to get, like, my electric scooter out in the rain for that long, and so I thought I was gonna have to pull, you know, what you did, like, the other day, and say, actually, it's raining, I can't escape this bridge. But it was delayed for other reasons anyway, so...
Yeah, if the podcast will be returning back to our previously announced bi-weekly release schedule. That way, Crunchy can get back to work on, his content, and I can hopefully start working on my content in addition to the full-time job that I'm now sticking with. I believe I announced at one other previous episode that I had started a full-time job that I actually enjoyed, and now I'm doing one that's actually in my career field. I switched up. So now... we're going back to our regularly scheduled programming of bi-weekly releases, no longer weekly.
Hell yeah. But none of that had anything to do with Undead Unluck except for the tenuous theme of being unlucky. So let's actually get into how we feel about it, because we've been, like, up to this point, we've been, like, sort of let down, but still, like, really enjoying really enjoying the show overall, despite it not necessarily living up to what episode 1 promised. And I'd say that this is definitely more in line with what the second block of episodes was, because that was about the point where the concepts behind, just the plot of the show got crazy enough that we could be entertained by just the idea of it. This show gets really weird. Like, I could have never anticipated this based on the first episode. Like, the concepts it is playing with are so bizarre. Okay, I am actually hearing the farm equipment now.
Yeah, I was strategically trying to mute myself, but yes, my neighbors are using yard work now, so I will try to mute myself as best I can during this. So if while I'm talking, you hear someone using a chainsaw or like a weed whacker, I can't help that. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
We've delayed it too much. God damn it.
God damn. Okay. See, even more unluck. It's only getting crazier. Like, come on. It'll
only reach peak unluck if the blade of whatever tool they're using snaps off and comes flying through my window and impales me in the head.
There we go. So, yeah, like, the concepts in this block of episodes are unhinged. Like, at this point where, like, talking about time loops, like, the universe ending and then beginning anew, and we're, like, stuck in that cycle, we have, like...
Yeah, this seems like shit we would find
Fuko...
out, like, near the end of Season 2. We're not even, like, at the end of Season 1. Like, we're not even at episode 20. And we're like, oh, by the way, the universe is on a time loop. We're all like,
Fuko
this shit has
writes
happened
the
before.
one-shot for the actual one-shot. She has canonically written that. I couldn't make this up if I wanted to. Like, she has canonically written the one-shot for this series. That happens. That happens.
That I did like a lot. I do like how meta it was getting on that end. I wasn't quite as big a fan of what followed it, but
so I guess
I think we'll get to that when we get to that.
Theme of this block of episodes, and really the theme of the show on the whole, is that meta, but also it's really entertaining. I will say that much about this show. I cannot say with confidence that it is boring. I was always engaged, always hooked, always interested in seeing where it was going, and I think this is genuinely, like, aside from obviously the first episode, which is the best episode of the show, basically. Like, I can't think of one that I found more engaging. But aside from that, like, on a moment-to-moment basis, this is probably the most enjoyable block of episodes, purely on the basis of, like, how insane it gets. But to contrast that, I think the visuals are the worst they've ever been. Like, the animation is getting really stiff at this point, and I think this is where it becomes most evident that I'm not convinced this author... What is his name? I should probably go look that up.
That is a
but I'm not convinced
question.
Yeah, I'm looking that up as I say this point, but I'm not convinced this author planned out the story particularly well. Because...
Yoshifumi Tozuka.
Yeah, Yoshifumi Tozuka. The plot... I mean, how much longer is this series? Because it already feels like we're near the end. Like, this feels like we're in, like, pretty much the act before the final act. Like, it feels like the semi-final. How much longer can it go on? Like, we're already near the end of the world. We're already at, like, the final stand. Like, I feel like the death of, the author's name. I had it written down somewhere.
Anno Un.
Yeah, Anno Un. The death of Anno Un. Spoiler alert. But the death of him, apparently it's a he. The death of him seemed to symbolize, like, the beginning of the final act of the story. To me, at least. Or at least the beginning of, like, the final few acts. But this is, like, the end of season 1 of, like, a long-running shonen. So what gives? Where does it go from here? And on the one hand, that is a fascinating question to pose. But on the other hand, it's like, it almost feels like we blew our load way too early. Especially with, certain plot points that we discussed last time with, the betrayal of Billy.
Yeah, I also love how, Billy has betrayed us. It is treated like a big turning point. And yet we've kind of, like, not felt the impact of that since. It kind of just feels like we're going back to business as usual. And he's like, Billy himself doesn't really have a bearing on the plot after his betrayal.
Yeah, I mean, granted, we do get the cliffhanger at the end of the final episode, like, oh, Juiz and Billy are talking to each other. This is gonna get crazy. So, some backstory. I was supposed to watch episode 16 last time. I did not. I, for some reason, spontaneously got dyslexia and misread the number of episodes I was supposed to watch. And so I watched it this time. And, first of all, I was, like, legitimately stunned at just how sudden the betrayal was. I did not expect it to be, like, the first thing in that episode, basically. Like, we get a little bit of build-up. We get, like, the opening conversation between, him and the robot girl. And... yeah, Tatiana.
Yeah.
We get the opening conversation that like kind of hypes it up, and then boom, like he's the big bad now for like the next 2 episodes. It's so sudden. And
I have this idea, and if someone wants to beat me to it, I guess I can't be too butthurt about it. But I have this idea for a video I think is banger, where I compare the spoilers for Bleach for this famous Bleach plot twist. I want to compare the betrayal of Aizen and the betrayal of Billy, and how one works really well and one doesn't work really well at all, and compare like why Aizen's betrayal is like really impactful and powerful to the story of Bleach, whereas Billy's betrayal of Undead Unluck has like no real weight to it.
See, Billy feels like he should be one of the most.
He's not. He hasn't even been a character
villains
up to this point. He's just been one of the guys of the Roundtable.
Dude, the Billy, like the entire Billy fight, in my opinion, is like the worst, like pretty much the most unenjoyable episodes of this block, in the sense that I just can't get behind him as a villain. Like, I do not care.
Because we don't know his motivation. We only know him as a villain. We don't even know him as like the person he faked being.
Yeah, it's just, and I mean, I guess in one sense you could say, oh well, Aizen's super powerful, and he has the power that copies all other powers. But I also just find that kind of goofy, and like he's not powerful in an interesting way to me. Having all the powers just, it feels so overpowered to the point where it just like loops back on itself to be like, well, why would a character be given this? Like that, it's overkill. Obviously, there's probably going to be some Achilles heel to it, but right now I am not convinced in its
to be fair,
as a power.
I think we've already seen a weakness to it where when he tried to copy Injustice against Tatiana, but they never explain it in the show, which is hilarious for a show that's so heavy on recapping and explaining events that just happened.
Oh god,
that they never explain why
on the recap.
We'll talk about it very shortly. But when he uses Injustice on Tatiana to get her to back off, she still is able to fight him off anyway. So apparently all we get is a comment from Billy saying, "Oh, that's your sense of justice then. That I thought was being reversed. I thought you were caring about Union, but no, you're actually caring about me."
I'm actually gonna fight back on you on this one. I love that moment. So the idea behind that,
I like it. I just don't think I don't remember like getting a proper explanation of it, because I was confused as to like, okay, what got reversed?
Why it I don't think we needed an explanation. Here's why. All right. So Tatiana, the idea is that her allegiance is with Billy. She literally values Billy more than the Roundtable, and she is fighting that loyalty throughout this throughout these 2 episodes. And so when Injustice is used on her, she goes against Billy because she's going against the allegiance that was more powerful. And so his power backfired because he misread Tatiana's connection to him. He thought she was more tethered to the Roundtable. She's actually more, loyal to Billy.
Okay, when you lay it out like that, it does make a lot of sense. I don't know. It must have been the way it was conveyed then. Maybe I missed something, but like the way that they explained it.
I thought it was banger. I thought that was like one of the most clever parts of this block of episodes. One of, if not the most clever. Really impactful moment to me, at least.
Yeah, maybe I just missed something. I was like, I was waiting for the explanation, and when you break it down to me, I get it now, and that is banger.
Yeah, so you were talking about recap. You mentioned recap.
So Mr. Bagels, I'd like to present to you this piece of evidence from the last Undead Unluck podcast, where I brought up the point of, man, I'm getting tired of these like episode recaps at the beginning of every episode, and then you came to the show's defense. You said, well, actually, it's kind of nice to get a little thing that you can just skip it, if you don't want the recap, just skip forward until you get to the new content. So
I still stand
has your
by
opinion?
That.
Okay.
However, There is a massive
your opinion
asterisk
changed?
to it now. So
what changed, Mr. Bagels?
If it was just at the beginning of the episode, that would be fine. I skipped through it each time pretty much. I mean, I watched it for the first episode, right? Because it had been a while since I had watched the show. So I watched the very first recap. After that, I skipped them each time. Not a big deal. The difference, and there was a bit of this in the last block of episodes, but what gets really bad in this block of episodes is recapping in the middle of the episode things that happened in prior episodes in a very blatant attempt at padding the runtime. So,
how'd you like that
episode,
season finale, Crunchy?
Okay, so there are two. I said there was one episode where it's really bad. There are two episodes where it's really bad, and one of them is the final episode of the season, where during the climactic battle we get the narrator voice who begins recapping the entire.
And it turns out, I will say, it was pretty neat. It was pretty neat that I think the narrator has been Anno this whole time.
If that is the case, I didn't actually put it together.
I could be wrong.
I would skip it all the time.
Yeah, probably. I think if I could be wrong, but I feel like, if I were writing the show, if this is the twist that I was gonna go with, it would make sense for Anno to be the narrator.
Yeah, I mean, that does make sense, because Anno is, kind of literally an author self-insert quasi, but no, but the entire fight, they're fighting against UMA Autumn, and we just get Anno Un recapping, oh, there was this boy, and he, was not seen by anything.
So this is a story all about how my life got turned upside down.
By the way, recapping last episode. Last episode. This was an episode ago. Even if I were watching this weekly, I would not have forgotten the broad strokes of Anno Un's
Crunchy, this
backstory.
is the TikTok generation. This is what we have to do now, don't you know?
I mean, yeah, I guess this is what it is now. But I was just this is a slap in the face. This is the worst possible time you could have a recap. You are in the climactic battle of UMA Autumn, and
that fight was nothing. Nothing happened.
See,
they got their training. They did a big move, and they nothing clever happened from it. They just got their training. They did a big move. Yeah, they teamed up with Rip and Under. That was cool. But aside from that, they did their big move that wasn't even well animated, and then they just beat them.
I mean, what I like about the fight is, once again, teaming up with Rip, which I have some complaints about, but we'll get to those. But the fundamental idea is cool. And the idea that, okay, so Anno Un has, played the strings just right. And so Rip has his body back. That was, a cool moment. And then Rip, he needs to use, the power where he can't, they can't heal, Unrepair. I remembered it now. And so he uses Unrepair to get the core out, but his attacks on their own wouldn't be able to pierce Yume Autumn, and so we have Andy firing first, and then double whammy with the Unrepair. They steal the core. That stuff I found interesting. Everything else is kind of a blur to me, just because I was groaning so hard at the fact that you would choose now to recap the backstory. I was groaning so hard.
Yeah, I felt my engagement being deflated in real time. We had just seen Anno do the sacrifice to bring Rip back to his original age, and cost him his own lifespan. And we had literally just seen their backstory the previous episode. We get it, all right? We got it. We'll go into it deeper later. We talk about that part as a whole. But yeah, we got it. We understand it. why now of all times are you going to deflate the final episode of your season against the one of the big, seasonal monsters, quite literally seasonal, the climax of your big arc, and it's nothing. It's a nothing burger and it feels like that because you chose to deflate it using this ill-timed recap that we did not need.
The only new thing I think we really learned is that, during that recap, is that, Anno Un, the drawing of him that he used for, to represent himself instead of his actual self is the body that we see, which could have been, that could have been relayed at any other time. That was a question in my mind, but, we could have... There were more opportune moments to relay this information.
Also, can we talk about that real quick? Because I'm genuinely curious about this, and I've given it a lot of thought, and I can't think of any other explanation. So he made it a point to say that, G-Liner can only draw one thing into reality at a time, right?
Yes.
Okay,
wait.
but we see him. See him draw the avatar, right?
Wait, you just unlocked, so many questions in my mind. I didn't even think about that. He literally,
is the drawing, I was confused.
And draws Andy's
the drawing...
arm.
Is it the drawing him? Does he, draw over himself to create the guise of Anno Un? Or is Anno Un, no, it can't be that, because we see, a separate body double, inside the Shueisha office, and when... he goes to see the corpse of his mom in the hospital, and all that. But was that non-diegetic? Was that just a way to represent the idea of him interacting with other people? Because the loophole with this rule is that because he has the power unknown, which means he is not able to let anyone know of his existence at all. He's basically a ghost. And so the only way he can interact with the world is by using the pen name that he develops as a manga author to act as a surrogate. Because no, this isn't Akira, the person who is the negator unknown. This is Anno Un. But in doing so, I'm still is Anno the blonde-haired body that we see him draw into reality at one point, is that him? And if so, does that mean the drawing can create new drawings and use that rule with G-Liner? Or is that just a plot hole that I discovered?
I think it's just a plot hole, because the idea behind the drawing is that, it's a loophole to the rules, where he can be known as this other identity and seen as, Anno Un. But at the same time, okay, but he can only have one drawing active. So how?
Yeah, either we're missing something or this is a plot hole.
I feel like it's difficult for both of us to miss this at once.
Well, see, because I noticed it. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, I can't imagine what the solution to that would be, since we both remember the one drawing at a timeline. So, yeah, I guess it's just a plot hole.
Yeah, so, while we're already on the subject, we might as well talk about it. How do you feel about the character of Anno?
I really like Anno, actually. As a character. I find him... Okay, well, first of all, criminal that they made, one of the hottest girls in the show a boy. Someone...
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw hands over that. But... Anno Un, I really love his personality, and the powers are, okay, so his powers are, weird... It's so meta, but it's, it's at that level where it's, it's so ridiculous that it's just entertaining for the sheer gall of the ideas being presented, and the fact that this is on screen right now, actually happening. I find it entertaining on that level. And that's unfortunately, I do think that's like a lot of what's keeping me through the show. Like, it is really held up by that appeal, but I fall for that appeal, so it's fine.
I like the concept of it. Like, I don't mind, like, Anno as a character. I think they're fun. I like how he uses his knowledge of the future to, like, be like, oh, I can't wait to see, like, this new story that you're going to create, Fuko and Andy, because his deal is that, he one day found the G-Liner, and at the same time, God, did an epic prank bro on him by giving him the unknown Negator ability at the same time, effectively making him a ghost to the world. And so when he picked up the G-Liner pen, the artifact, it gives him all knowledge, past and present, of the time loop. Like, he understands what Negators are. He understands all these future events. The way they convey it is that at the time, he only, like, kind of understands what Negators are and doesn't, like, completely get that all the characters that he's seeing in his head are real. I think it's conveyed to him at first that, like, oh, these are just, like, this whole story that I came up with, like, lickety-split as soon as I picked up this pen. But then at one point he goes to where he knows in his head that Andy will be in Japan at the time. And then discovers, oh shit, I see Andy. I see this person that I thought was just a character in my head is actually real, meaning all of this stuff is in fact real. Which he probably should have been able to figure out as soon as he became a ghost, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. I mean, I don't really consider that too big of a flaw.
Yeah, it's, what I enjoy his role in, like, all these characters that I am going to tell, like, prophesize the events of, have inspired me, like, experiencing their stories, through the power of G-Liner and my knowledge of the universe now has given me this courage to, like, follow my own passions and tell their stories and, appreciate life even though I'm a ghost who is now invisible to the world. They've given me strength, and now I want to return the favor by helping them break this loop and, give them strength in return. I like it on that front. Where it kind of loses me is that they put Anno in this teacher role. Like, he's their sensei now. He is kicking off their training arc. And, I'm down for a good training arc, but the way they go about it, while creative, I kind of feel like is unearned and unsatisfying in the long run.
You're putting into exact words how I feel about it, because it's so hard. Because on the one hand, the idea of Fuko like inserting herself into Andy's narrative in the past, like in this, like sort of dream book sequence, right? But like implanting those memories into him that then get transferred to the real Andy and Fuko.
This is some Kingdom Hearts shit, by the way.
It is really interesting. Like, I love that idea. Here's what I think they're missing. I think we needed to spend like an episode longer in that book, because like we go down to the Wild West with Andy having like just lost his memories, and we have an admittedly like really fun episode of like, oh, we're in the Wild West now and whatever, and then it just kind of like montages the rest of their adventures, and then we get like the final conversation before she starts fading away. And I was like, but hold on, you need to do like a little bit more with this if this is the training arc, because we don't see enough of the struggle and trials and tribulations they go through, where if I saw more of that, I'd be like, okay, now I get it. Like, now, oh, it's all, like, I feel like we've earned this. I feel like this is satisfying to see as a reward for our efforts. I guess you could argue that the Victor fight does that, but even then, like, by that point, he's already, like, gone through all the changes and has the powers now. It's like, I feel like there should have more of the process of getting those powers and, like, having his life changed should have been sold to me. I mean, I guess another aspect of it is that, like, okay, so the ending conversation of that arc, the idea behind it is that Fuko changed Andy's perspective on death, where she, said, look, you're not dead until, like, you've lost the memories of that person. Like, you keep them you keep them alive inside you. And Andy sees this and is like, because he's seen all his comrades die in the past and whatever, and so he, like, by hearing this is like, oh, okay, like, I get it. I can get over the grief of my lost comrades more easily now because I am carrying their memory inside me. And I was just like, this conversation's kind of gay. Like, that's like, is that not like the most generic thing to say? Like, oh,
I mean, you're not wrong,
they're not dead until you leave, until you've, like, forgotten them. Is that not a thing that, like, everyone already knows? If I heard that conversation, I'd just be like, yeah, I've heard it 50 times before. Like, it's hard for me to really wrap my head around how this is the thing that changed Andy
I think
forever.
What they were going for is that once Andy, like, figured out that he was undead, and now he instantly realized, like, oh, all my relationships will not, like, mean much in the long run because I'm going to outlive all of my friends. So, what's the point of, like, long lasting? Well, what's the point of getting invested, But, I think what they were going for is that with Fuko instilling that idea of, no, as long as you keep the memories of them alive, no one's ever really gone. And, like, for him to learn that is nice, but it's just the idea of that revelation giving him access to all of these new powers and, like, putting him more on Victor's level. I feel like it's kind of lame, and especially so when we find out that, like, it's nice that Fuko's words convinced him to change his outlook on life. But, like, there are two things about that. One, we find out, like, confirmations by Anno saying that, okay, like, none of this, like, actually happened in, like, the timeline. These are just, we're literally Kingdom Hearts writing memories into Andy's head that are changing his outlook like this. So, but, like, functionally, they might as well have happened. She might as well have time traveled.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes. So it's kind of a moot point, which does kind of make their meeting in the first episode a little, like, little more convenient and little, like, less special. Of, like, as, like, oh, I guess this was fated to happen, huh?
I mean,
and then I wouldn't even go
that brought them.
Well, the book.
I mean, that just alters memories, though, like you said. Like,
well,
in
like,
real life, it was just like a convenience.
I mean, the way that it all goes down, though. I mean, like, I don't want to get too much into it because that could open up a whole can of worms. But, like, the second thing is that, do you agree that it's lame that Andy unlocks all of these new abilities essentially off screen? Like, yeah, Fuko changes his worldview, which allows him to, like, think up these new techniques in the 200 or so years that they were apart after she faded away. But, like, don't you think it would have been cool for him to
that?
Don't you think it would have been cooler for him to, like, discover that as they were, like, traveling together, like, in the past?
I mean, that's, like, they even what I was
had
saying.
That other episode. Yeah, they could have spent that extra episode you were talking about if they did do that. Him, like, taking her advice to heart, and then, like, do we see him training these new abilities? But essentially, this might as well be like a whole new different Andy that showed up to fight Victor.
Well, you want to know what the worst part is? With how much recap this show has, we have time for that extra episode. We objectively have time for it.
Yeah, if you, like, cut out all of the time spent on these, like, recap episodes, I think, not even throughout the whole show, maybe just, like, half the show, you could convert that into another episode.
I mean, like, a third of
time.
episode 18 was a recap, so, like, there, you already have, like, a third of the episode there. Like, come on, get on this. Oh, dear lord.
Yeah, I told you it was a problem.
That's the thing about this show. And yeah, you are vindicated in that. I'm sorry for ever doubting you. But
yeah, never fucking doubt me again.
But this show is like I want to love it because on paper this is like my ideal shonen. Just the craziest ideas with the craziest execution. And the author like clearly has a lot of personality. Like Yoshifumi, my man, like bro has like so many creative ideas and like he's built different. He thinks about the world in crazy ways.
I'll say this, the show's not boring.
Yeah, like it's never boring.
Do I disagree with some of the writing decisions? Absolutely. Do I think they're boring writing decisions? No.
Well, here's the thing. The pacing has gone by too quickly, as we've already kind of established, but also in the sense that, like, I feel like ever since the first episode, the characters have been getting less and less interesting on average. Like, I feel like I was most invested in Andy and Fuko, ironically enough, in episode 1, like near the beginning of the show, when I was just getting into their dynamic. But as the show goes on, you kind of realize that, like, their actual personality is kind of incidental to the entire narrative. It is very much a what wacky concept can I pull out of my ass show. And Andy and Fuko, like, it feels like it could have been anyone's story in that role. You know what I mean?
I feel
guess
like
they do crazy
with the benefit
stuff
of hindsight
powers.
now, I feel like with the benefit of hindsight, I would have much preferred the show tackle like the progression of like a world tour, like going around the world as, you know, trying to find a way to use Fuko's undeath to kill Andy while also falling in love. I think I would have preferred them to just like go around, you know, from country to country, you know, place to place, just as a pair, not joining the Roundtable and just fighting Negators like every so often.
Well, also, in the first podcast, I talked about how Fuko had this sort of guilt complex about having caused the death of so many people. And I was like, oh, you know, this is an interesting character trait. Now she's like trying to overcome that. And then I'm like, what happened to that? Like, where did that go? Nowhere.
It's still there. Like, she does want to save people. Like with even that gets addressed even here, and like she wants to have the ability to like save even one person. You know, which is very typical for your shonen protagonists. It's just that we don't really see her do it. Is the thing. She's talking a big game, and she's like in her own ways that she can handle right now, taking strides towards it. But you know, we don't see her directly do anything aside from, you know, Andy and to an extent Anno and Rip.
Yeah, it's just kind of like I feel like the character arcs could have been emphasized. Like, why is my computer running out of power?
Okay, is it plugged in?
It was plugged in, but the like power strip I use has this weird thing where there's like a master port that I usually put the AC on. It's like too complicated to explain. But yeah, okay, now it's charging. Now we're good. Okay, the point I was on. Yeah. I mean, I feel like this show would have been better if we had just like slowed down the pace a little and give more, like, flesh out the actual character arcs and what the characters are like and give them more intrigue. Because it's like, it's the wackiest ideas that are really entertaining to watch unfold, but the connective tissue just isn't really there. And we've already tackled that with Billy, with, you know, the two lackluster training arcs in this show. Like off-screen like martial arts training for Fuko, and then off-screen,
which we never see,
powers.
By the way.
Yeah, Fuko doesn't do martial arts. Fuko is
not once,
same.
not a punch thrown. She's a shooty gal. She just shoots a gun now.
It's literally like, what was the point? What was the point of it? I don't get it. So that was thrown in there for no reason, apparently. Fuko is, you know, about the same, really. Her powers have not... I mean, they've progressed a little to where the unluck, Victor says, it's like, you know, it's being specific to her target now, which is interesting, but it's also, like, still off-screen. So, like, what the hell? It still doesn't feel earned.
The
this
most
is the
badass
frustrating thing about Undead Unluck.
Yeah, the most badass moment Fuko gets in this whole block of episodes is in the Wild West dreams memory sequence when Andy's like, "All right, you want to join my gang? Here, I've taken 5 bullets out of the 6-chamber revolver. Play Russian roulette, pull the trigger against your head, Persona 3 style, and if you do it, you can join the crew." And so she picks up the gun, does it, pulls back the hammer, shoots it, nothing goes off. And they're like, "Oh, goddamn, okay, yeah, I guess you can join." And then she pulls back the hammer repeatedly, like 4 more times, and keeps like with the most like badass, unwavering expression. It keeps pulling the trigger, and then the cowboy girl or cowgirl rather, smacks the gun out of her hand. Like, "What the fuck are you thinking? You insane?" And she's like, "Oh no, I knew Andy wasn't gonna load that final bullet in there. Like he did a good job tricking me into thinking that." It wasn't going to be in there, but I knew he wasn't gonna put it in.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. Like the entire Wild West like idea, just the idea of like taking a break from the show to do that is once again crazy. Like this is a crazy concept show that was like super and more entertaining than I thought it'd be. Really, like there was a part of me that was kind of dreading taking a break from the narrative to do this. Then I watched it actually unfold and was like, you know what? You've warmed me up to the concept. So much so that I wanted it to last another episode because
you gave me
a
pretty looking cowgirl. I will follow along with your journey, Mr. Tozuka, or whatever your name was.
Yeah, but it's kind of a mess. Also, was I the only one who felt like Rip's turn to being like kind of a good guy came out of like completely nowhere?
I don't want to say like, completely nowhere because I kind of really like Rip, but definitely his motivation got shoehorned in. Like the author was like, "Oh damn, how do I make Rip like more sympathetic in this position that we're in right now?" I'll quickly throw in like a snippet of him and Latla's backstory where Latla's little sister was a patient under Rip who was a surgeon at the time, and he thinks that he killed her in the surgery due to his unrepair ability, which is tragic, but then Latla thinks that she caused it by telling a fortune of a successful operation, and her ability causes whatever she says for the opposite to happen.
Yeah, but it's like, see, I like the idea that it's like, if we can warm up Rip to the idea that we can kill God, he can kind of get on board with it. If we work through his trauma and issues and his idea that like, the world has messed us up and all that stuff. I like the idea that he can be brought back from that, but I feel like we needed like some hint at that being an eventual possibility.
I would have gladly taken a Rip and Latla backstory episode.
I think Rip is more interesting with that as part of his character. Like, I've really warmed up to him now, but it feels like it came out of nowhere. It feels like the author got to episode 24 and was like, wait, the scenario I'm like trying to create, like I have not done the requisite work to be able to have this happen. Quick, backstory. Also, this is like, he is like being won over on the idea of killing God. Like as soon as he sees like we can kill Yuame Autumn, he's like, oh, maybe this is like a thing that can happen. He's like kind of teaming up with them now. But it was very sudden to me. Especially because like right before then, he's with Unseen, like trying to kill them. And then we get the most badass shot of the entire show where Unseen is killed. Loved that. Like the entire roof of the building just gets sent flying upward over Fuko in the chair as blood is splattering. That is such a cool shot. Like that's super evocative.
Yeah, that was a pretty gnarly kill.
Actually, on the note of visuals, they have degraded further.
Yep. Yep. I was waiting this whole block being like, okay, what's the like next crazy cut of animation that was going to be on par with like the first episode, or even the, like the Rip fight, because it didn't have crazy cuts of animation, but it was like serviceable enough. No, we peaked. It's all downhill from there.
So see, the most jarring thing is that there are two like really good cuts of animation, like when Fuko is being dragged into the book, and then actually no, there's even a few more than that. Like when there's this one bit where she's like explaining something. Here I have it.
It's the time
loop.
Loop.
I know. Scroll down.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's
explaining the time loop. There we go.
Yeah,
it's
like a very
all sorts of
Trigger-esque.
crazy editing.
Yeah, she's like taking up the mallet and destroying different Earths and like stacking bodies of herself.
It's really entertaining. I loved that. There's the one where she's like, "It's so good." Beautiful cut of animation.
Fuko's so cute, dude. It's also a very raw reveal that her meteors are actually fragments of the former Earth from the previous time loop that she pulls down to hit people with.
Yeah, too bad they like recapped to Fuko sending down meteors in prior episodes when it's like, I know, she's done it constantly. We know. We don't need to be reminded of that. We know.
I think in their defense in this one instance, I would, if that was the only instance of a recap happening in that episode, I wouldn't be against it, if only because for like, hey, now you have the added information of these meteors that she's been pulling down this whole time. They were former pieces of the previous Earth.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I do like it as an explanation of why meteors, because we literally asked that question. We were like, well, why is it just meteors that she's pulling down to destroy things? And it's like, well, it's there's an actual reason for it now, and it's like kind of cool. So I like it in that sense. A lot of the backgrounds in this block of episodes are, I put in my notes, I have never seen such a Rizless background before. And it's like the horrible looking shot of the inside of a plane. And it's like, it's so bad. It's so bad looking.
I didn't take too much notice of the backgrounds because I was too distracted by the horrible leaves that were constantly falling in the autumn arc. That was so distracting. Because they don't look like they belong. They look like they were just created with a digital computer and placed in to give like, okay, it's autumn, so we gotta have falling leaves.
Okay, but you want to know what's
we can't draw them
than the leaves? You want to know what's somehow even worse? So
the CG spiders.
The UMA. Yes, at the beginning of episode 20, there was a shot where we see UMA Autumn, and we're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he is drawn, so that's nice. But then, there's like CG spiders that he sends out, but they're, okay, the way they do it is like, it's not just that they're CG, it's that they have been pasted on as if I put them on there in Sony Vegas. And it looks like it's just a straight up still GIF of a spider walking that has been pasted onto the screen. And it looks like they're walking in place. And so when I first saw that, I burst out laughing. I could not believe how bad it was. I literally laughed out loud, like louder than any of the jokes in this block. And that's rough. That's very rough.
Well, speaking of jokes, though, because I don't think I'll find another place to bring this up, there was one joke that sent me, which was when Fuko's given the robot arms when they're about to make the manga one-shot. And she's like trying to figure out how to control them, and she accidentally rips off the front of Andy's clothes, and we get the censor bar, which is hilarious, but then we see her rip off the censor, implying that she's ripped off his dick, and then they have to censor the broadcast.
I did like the censored broadcast bit. But yeah, what other bad things about the visuals? Yeah, okay, so something that has been persistent in this show is that, like, okay, so normally in shows, I love it when they switch the color palette to something weird. This is something that Shaft shows do all the time to great effect. I like weird colors. But
Day XXX of Crunchy would come watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Except, in this show, they somehow make it not work. And I think the reason why is because they use, like, one color way too much. Like, it looks samey in a way when they
you
switch
like
the
orange?
colors. Yeah, it's just the same color on everything whenever they do it. And it's, like, very overpowering, and there's not enough variance, and so it just comes out looking ugly. So, yeah, like, even the UMA Autumn fight, everything has to be orange, as you said. All of it is orange and red. And, like, not even, like, varying shades of orange and red, just, like, generally the same shade. And that's the issue.
Yeah, you know what? The visuals may have declined, but at least the girls have remained adorable. I have in my notes here, Juiz in an office suit, save me. Shueisha assistant girl, save me.
Shueisha assistant girl does go way harder than she needed to.
the little, like, when Andy showed up and took the phone away from her, to be like, oh yeah, can we have the phone? Like, the little voice line she gives of her, like, foaming at the mouth, essentially, from being intimidated so much, was adorable.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, random cowgirl. I took way too many screenshots of her.
Right?
And once again, like, why did they have to make Anno Un a boy? Like, come on. The hottest girl of them all was right there, and you had to ruin it last minute.
Well, I wouldn't say hottest girl. Latla still got that on lock.
Okay, Latla might have that. I don't know. I just really like Anno's aesthetic is the thing. Like, if Anno were a
but
girl,
at the same time, both of Latla's outfits have been bangers. Like, the first one on the boat where she's, like, in that V dress that shows off her bust, and then the one that she's wearing in the Automark with the exposed shoulders, like it's like a sweater kind of.
Maybe I just have a thing for, like, lazy tracksuit aesthetic, I guess. I don't know. I like her. Him. I keep auto-correcting it to her in my mind because I want that reality
to be fair,
true.
I every note that I took before the gender reveal, I did refer to Anno as a girl because, I mean, come on. The voice is a girl.
I did the same thing.
The visuals, like, even as a kid, it looked like he looked like a girl. And, like, why did he grow up to look like his mom? Was that like an intentional choice?
Beats me.
I don't know, maybe it's something the author's into. Maybe this is the author's way of wanting to, like, come out to the world as the secret trans icon.
Yeah, so what
given how he's like a quasi self-insert.
Yeah, so what other notes do we have?
Okay, actually,
here's a random thing I want to note. All right, so in episode 19, when Anno Un calls, I literally almost said she again. Like, on the phone, it says unknown for the caller ID, and I immediately pieced it together. Oh, okay. His power is unknown. And then it turned out to actually be unknown, and I was like, oh, okay, crazy. I picked up on it. I feel...
Okay, that was clever.
That was a good setup. I liked that.
Yeah, I did enjoy the whole bit of them writing the one shot for Undead Unluck, and I imagine that the response that the Shueisha office lady gave to Fuko about, like, the art style and the story was probably 100% guaranteed chance that it was based on him actually submitting Undead Unluck to Shonen Jump.
I picked up on that as well. It is... You cannot convince me otherwise. It has to be, like, beat for beat the critique he got.
Yeah.
Yeah, so other than that, I'm looking through my notes.
Yeah, we've kind of gone over everything, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a bit of a short one.
Yeah. So I guess we're just gonna wrap up with our overall thoughts on this season of Undead Unluck. At the time of this recording, currently no plans for a season 2. But how we feeling about the show just as it is now?
So, Undead Unluck is a weird one because I want to like it like so much. I want it to be the greatest thing ever based on that first episode and all the wacky concepts it plays with. And if it had kept the visual quality up, I think I might have genuinely been tempted to give it an 8. Just because, it would have looked really pretty, and all the moments in the later episodes that didn't have that high of impact probably would have hit a lot harder, just with better animation. But as it stands, I think I have to go with a 7. Like, it pains me to say it, even though that is a positive score. At the same time, it's just the connective tissue is just a bit too weak. And, I was thinking about giving it an 8, but then I remembered, I gave Frieren an 8. I can't justify putting this on the same tier.
I'm gonna take it one step further. I'm thinking 6.
You're thinking 6? Wow.
Given everything, it peaks early on. It does have, some its moments, everything. I enjoyed mostly everything of the Unrepair arc. But I think about everything that it's happened, and it has individual strong moments, but when I think of like you said, the connective tissue, and I think of the show as a whole and how it peaks early on and then has in moments, but then it kind of falls off gradually as it goes along, and now to the point where we were pretty positive about it in this the first podcast that we did on it, the first 8 episodes. Then we kind of had a slightly mixed feelings in the second one, but we were still overall positive on it because we were just engaged with how creative and entertaining it is. And now we're coming to this one, and we kind of spent the majority of it criticizing it. And I'm like, I'm putting it all into perspective.
I feel like I've almost had the opposite reaction to you, where it's I actually think, well, obviously it peaks in episode 1. There's no question about that. We both agree with that statement, I feel. Peaks in episode 1.
I said I enjoyed the first episode of Undead Unluck more than I enjoyed the first episode of Frieren.
Yeah, I mean, we were laying on the praise. But in the first podcast, if you recall, I was really hung up on not liking Fuko and Andy's dynamic as much as I wanted to. And I feel like for the first block of episodes, I was really hung up on that. I was really why do I not like these characters as much as I should? And then as the show goes on, and it gets to those entertaining concepts, I feel like I kind of begin, like I said, this is probably the most entertaining block of episodes purely because of just the insane concepts. And so I feel like I almost like it more as it goes on. But the issue is, when taken as a whole piece, you're well, okay, it's got one really fantastic episode, and then everything after that was just varying shades of worse than that. And it's it just doesn't fulfill its potential. And that's the worst thing I can say about it.
Yeah, I will say, I've heard from Undead Unluck fans that the manga goes insane. I've heard that, especially later developments in the manga, and what tipped me off most of that is that someone did a Twitter post saying, all right, who wins in a fight between Fuko and Yuji? And so when I saw that, just going off my knowledge of this season of the anime, I'm thinking, oh, okay, well, as long as, Yuji doesn't let Fuko touch his skin, then he, beats the shit out of her, right? And then I had people in the comments being how to spot an anime only. And what the fuck kind of power up does Fuko get later down the line that she could go toe to toe with these, actual shonen battle protagonists? So apparently, it goes crazy later, or maybe we're going on a sloppy beginning to set up for something even crazier. But as of taking what we have in the anime currently, and also marking the decline of both the writing and, which is from the manga, but then the decline of the production of the anime, where it doesn't reach the same heights as its first few episodes, which, is common for a lot of anime, but for a shonen like this, especially with a good studio like David Production, you'd think they'd be on it more with the quality. But I feel like,
with anime
given
schedules
everything
these days, it's a toss-up for any studio that isn't KyoAni.
Yeah, but like given everything that has been presented to me, I feel like I thought about giving it a 7, but then like just thinking about it, putting it all together and be like, well, I didn't like this about the show, and it kind of got uglier as it went on. At least the animation, the art's been pretty consistent. Yeah, I'm thinking 6.
All right, well, I can't even say that's an unjustified score, because like there's so much potential left on the table.
Yeah, I mean, if a season 2 gets announced, I would definitely not be opposed to continuing it for the podcast. But I feel like if we weren't doing the podcast, if I wanted to continue the show, I'd probably just read the manga.
Yeah, I mean, at least that would probably have really good art, like, consistently. And the other thing is, like, you say it goes crazy later in the manga, more than likely. I mean,
and the manga probably has way less recaps.
Almost certainly, because this was clearly to pad out the runtime, because the production committee decided it would end at this point, and then they needed to stretch that out across 24 episodes no matter what. But the interesting thing, like I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, like, where do you go from here? We're already, it feels like near the end. So what happens? Like, I am so curious. Like, I would be willing to continue it just to know. Like, where could it go? If a season 2 gets announced, we'll be on it, more than likely.
Yep, so viewers, if you want to keep up with our Undead Unluck escapades, if they were to ever continue, then y'all know what to do. If y'all enjoyed the podcast, let us know down in the comments what you think of the show and what anime we should cover in the future. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a new episode, subscribe to Crunchy's channel, and check out all our socials linked in the description below. That'll do her for this episode of Castaway Anime Podcast. I'm Neon Manta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And you'll see us next time.